Hey everyone, welcome to today's edition of One Single Story. I'm with Alyssa Bream and Chris Rexroad, and we are beginning a new book this week, the book of Hosea. And the theme of Hosea is unfaithfulness. So it's a prophetic book in the Bible that revolves around this theme of unfaithfulness. So you have Hosea, and who's a prophet. He's called to marry a prostitute, which is complicated out of the gate, and so her name is Gomer, and that's even more complicated because
I started humming Gomer USMC this morning. I was like, why is this in my head?
Yeah, that's why.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and when I think of Gomer, like literally the only other Gomer in my mind is Gomer Pyle.
Gomer Pyle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's it. That's the only other Gomer.
Yeah.
He's told to marry her to demonstrate how Israel's been unfaithful to God by worshiping these false idols. And he uses his personal experience with Gomer to illustrate this over the years. But despite their disloyalty, God still loves them. He offers them mercy and forgiveness if they repent, return to him with sincerity. It's a reminder. The book is a reminder to us of the consequences of unfaithfulness toward God, but it's also a reminder of his unconditional love and faithfulness to us in spite of that. One of my wife's favorite books is
Redeeming Love.
Redeeming Love. Thank you. Unfailing Love is what was coming to my mind. Redeeming Love. And there was a movie, was it last year?
2020.
Has it been that long ago?
Or maybe it was last year.
It couldn't have been 2020. I don't think there were any movies coming out. But
And maybe last year.
It's been in the last 2 years, certainly.
Yeah.
I'm sure
It's
that.
streaming free on Peacock right now.
Okay. And she wasn't disappointed in the movie, because she's read the book, I think, 3 times. But she thought it was pretty close to the book. Is the movie called Redeeming Love? I thought, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. And they're both it's loosely based on it's more of a cowboy western setting, I think. Yeah. Not
1800s
right.
versus 800
BC. That's right. So today our reading was Hosea chapters 3 and 4. And chapter 3 begins, it says, "Then the Lord said to me, go and love your wife again, even though she commits adultery with another lover. This will illustrate that the Lord still loves Israel, even though the people have turned to other gods and love to worship them." So just right out of the gate, God says, he's purchased her and then she's left again, and I'll just be honest, we would be enough of a ask from the Lord to marry a prostitute, right? That's like a big ask.
Yeah.
But then when she leaves, he's asked to go back and bring her back as a symbol to show the people God's love for them. So the question that I want to kind of talk around today is how our own personal responsibility and actions affect what other people, what impact does it have on other people? What is it teaching? How are our lives in a relationship, I guess, is an example to other people about Christ? Because I ask myself these questions sometimes, and I am asked questions like this sometimes, and I think how we live and how we treat other people says more than the messages we preach, So Jesus would say that the world would know you're my disciples by the way you love one another. So this example is going to teach them. So that's what I want to talk about for a few minutes. How are our lives and our relationships an example to others about Christ?
When I see people treating their, especially family members, certain ways, to me, that is the biggest indicator I take about how their relationship is going with Christ, because I think that is the only evidence we see. We don't know what's going on in their head, what kind of prayer life, what kind of devotional life we're going, but we see the fruit of that in the way they treat the people around them.
Such as, so like, what are some things that you think about?
So it's probably easier to think of bad examples. Like I can think of some situations where I've heard people talk really disparagingly to their kids and like in front of other people. And it's like, why do you need to tear down your kid in front of other people when your kid was doing like nothing bad?
Kid things.
Yes. Like not even kid things. I mean, I don't want to go into details and, start throwing out specifics, but I think, that to me reveals a lot about how they maybe view, their relationship. I think when people are show love and compassion to other people, it shows that they have been shown that in their life and they maybe have received that and really embraced that from God, and they're able to show that to other people and give that grace and love when maybe that person doesn't deserve it.
Definitely how you I mean, some indicators to be how you talk about your spouse and your family when they're not around. I mean, it's one thing to joke around and stuff like that, but I worked in the factory for a lot of years, and you would hear all kinds of stuff, and it's just kind of like, if your wife was standing there or your husband was standing there, it's like you wouldn't be talking like that. And if you were talking like that, either you're going to need to duck or watch out what's coming up down the road. But I think a lot of it, like kind of like Alyssa was saying, there is how you treat people, how you talk about your family, how you interact with them in different places. I guess one of my big pet peeves is when it's looking at like parents and kids, is like when you see the parents like in Walmart or somewhere that are just like, I don't even know how to describe this, just parenting out loud, making a scene about it, and the kid's not learning anything and still screaming and all kinds of stuff. It's just like there's things that you could be doing differently that could show that you have a heart for Christ, if that is the situation. But I mean, a lot of stuff that we do, people are always watching us. I mean, so a phrase that I've learned a long time ago is 90% of evangelism is nonverbal. So people are always watching what we're doing more than, like you said, than the message that we're preaching.
I'm a discerner. I'm a gut person, and so probably more times than I would like to admit, I make judgments about people pretty quickly. Like, it doesn't take a long time, for me to decide, okay, you're good or you're not good. I find I'm able to better judge people over a period of time when I can watch them up close. You mentioned Walmart. If I had to guess, maybe this is not true, but I think everybody has had moments where they didn't look very Christ-like, in Walmart or wherever,
Food Line.
Yeah.
After daycare.
Yeah, right. So, the one-off moments I don't think a lot about, even though I think we have to be aware of them, but the commitment that it shows, and this specifically is speaking about a commitment that you're making to a relationship for long term. It's not just, how do I treat you today? Are we having a good day? Because we all have I shouldn't say bad days, even complicated days, even as we record this, like yesterday, I had to work really hard not to let my emotions override what needed to happen, because there was just it was just one of those days. From the time I walked in the building, it was like,
You're welcome for that.
yeah. Well, I mean, it was it would have happened anyway, but I mean, it was just there was nothing you could do about it. Like, it's just and it started kind of a snowball that, and we have to work really hard because in the what I know is that people are watching, they're paying attention. There are people that if I carry those things up to preach, they're going to be affected by it. They may not receive what they need to receive that day. How I treat my spouse, has a significant impact on the people around me. What I say to her, the tone that I use to her, and that's not always perfect. That sometimes is. We're irritated or frustrated, and I think people pick up on those things, and it impacts them more than we really wish. And in the testing relationships, I'm in the middle of a situation right now that is it's very complicated, where I am trying to be the best friend I know how to be. But I also know that it has significant other impacts laterally, that I have to think through. And I don't know what I would do. Like, I'm not single, I'm married. So this isn't like a conversation to have for me, but I don't know what I would do if I was pastoring, church, and I was single, and God said, "Okay, you're going to teach your church a lesson. You're going to go marry a prostitute." Yeah, like, I don't know. I just don't. I don't. I think it would be a long debate. That's what I believe, and
That might take place out in Vegas.
huh? Well, I don't think I would have to go that far. Do you think people are paying closer attention to the difficult things of life? So, like our marriage, you talked about parenting, like our marriage, our parenting, because they know how difficult those things are, and so they're watching to see how we respond. I will go out of my way not to say something negative about my spouse to other people. I mean, I'll go out of my way. I mean, I'll even defend at times things that I would personally criticize, because she's my spouse. I'm always cautious about people who talk about their spouse publicly, or their kids. You talked about their kids. What are some other difficult relationships that you think people watch closely to see how we respond?
Your work relationships, if you're able to see people in their environments, and probably how you treat people that live around you, if they're able to witness those things too. Probably an area where I would fail sometimes is on the road. I get pretty irritated with left lane drivers and people that do things that bottleneck up traffic. I'm an efficiency flow person, and when I see stuff like that, it really annoys me. So that's probably the area that I need help.
I see a lot of, like, when you work retail or when you're in the food industry, and how that person treats somebody who they're going to be interacting with for 2 minutes. And, if they're getting frustrated on, stupid things that person has no control over, like, I've been on the receiving end of that. So I try really hard to not, even when it's like a super obvious thing, like, why can't you just do this, like that makes sense. Like, and I have seen, I've dined with somebody who was a horrible tipper, and they like paid for the meal, and like Tyler and I were embarrassed to leave without adding something to that tip, because it was like, oh my goodness, why? Like
$1.
I don't know how much it was. I think Tyler saw how much he wrote on it, and here's the thing: here, that person was a pastor too, and so it's like, come on, like you gotta. It wasn't you. Just in case anybody is like trying to guess.
100% not me.
And that person, we had seen him treat us bad in other ways, and like, so I think that was just like a way that was like, man, you can't even treat somebody nice that you're with for an hour.
Tipping is a interesting conversation. In my opinion, it is a simple way to make somebody's day that might not otherwise. It is one of the reasons I dislike somebody paying for my meal. And I have no control over it unless, if I have cash in my pocket, I can do whatever I want to. But sometimes that's not the case because I use a card for everything that I possibly can. But I always, gosh, how much are they leaving? Because I think it's a simple way, and I had a pastor tell me one time. He said, always leave a good tip. He said, because you never know when you're going to pastor those people. You never know when they're going to walk in your door and they're going to go, oh, that's the jerk that left me a penny.
Or when they had been in your church and you didn't see them and you didn't realize it, and you're dining with them after that evening or whatever.
Yeah. I think work relationships are how we treat one another. And I think people, like in the church specifically, evaluate how, we get along, whether we're cordial, kind, what we do and say, about one another. I think they pay attention to that, because if I think it builds trust. I think they feel comfortable. Okay. If they're comfortable with one another, then they can be comfortable here. It's a safe place. I just think the life that we live, sometimes we put way too much emphasis on, I don't smoke, I don't chew, don't drink, and I'm not, those are conversations to have, but I think people watch more of our relationships and how we treat one another than we realize. Well, thank you guys for joining us today as we begin the book of Hosea. I hope that you'll be back tomorrow as we continue this conversation, and we will see you then.